Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. This is episode 3, and this is the second in a 2-part series of things that youth pastors do that sabotage themselves.
How
basically.
not to suck.
Yeah, how not to suck.
Not that you do.
So,
if you did suck, how not to.
We covered 5 in the last episode, and if you're watching on YouTube, go back and click on the first episode that we did in this series. And if you're listening on the podcast, please go back and listen to the episode 2, which is the first of the series. But let's go ahead and move into right away. What are the next 5 that youth pastors do that suck?
Yeah, these are just like, again, bad habits that we get into just to make sure we're watching. So the next one we're going to talk about is that we tend to put fun over safety. Sometimes. Okay. So we're a little bit known for being a little reckless, maybe bending the rules a little bit in the name of fun, in the name of entertainment. And I think this switched for me a little bit when I became a parent and realized, oh my goodness, if I were not present, how would I want my child to be treated? What boundaries would I want in place? And we have this saying at North Coast Church, which I think is pretty brilliant, and it like relates to this perfectly. If you can't live with the worst case scenario, don't do it. So when you have this crazy idea in your brain of like, let's build a ramp made of ice and then like get kids on a tube and then like launch them down and like kind of like, you know, we just get these ideas in our mind, like we relive our childhood and we think it just sounds so fun. And there's probably that little voice in our head sometimes that goes like, they could run into a tree. Like that could be really bad. But sometimes we're just like, whatever, it'll make for a great video. It'll be so fun. The kids will think I'm so cool. Right. But when we take those scenarios to their logical end of like, what is the worst case scenario in this moment? And can we live with that? And do you have a leg to stand on? So think of it like this. What is that headline going to read? Because it doesn't matter what happened. It matters what looked like happened. It matters what people tell their parents and their friends and other parents talking to each other. It matters what they think happened on your watch. And so now you could take this to an extreme, right? It's
no
like,
fun zone.
What could happen right now? It's raining outside and we could get electrocuted while we're doing, let's not do a podcast. Like, okay, like, duh. Like, don't be, I don't know.
Overly dramatic and overly
sure.
cautious.
But is it reasonable? So if something out of the blue, outside of your control, random happened, a plane crashes into the church, like how could we ever see that coming?
Right.
Well, that's a lot different than, well, did you make decisions to lead up to a kid in the hospital or, you know, just safety or moral lines getting crossed?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because I feel like youth pastors always want to make sure they have as much fun as possible, which youth group is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're pushing that line and that limit of safety.
Or just stupidity. Like, as we're talking, to be honest, I paid this dumb tax hard. I thought it'd be so fun to have a food fight. And the way that it worked is there was a bucket of ketchup.
Go on.
A bucket of mustard. Saw that one coming. And what you would do, you're either on the red team or the yellow team. And so you would take a marshmallow and you would dip it in your team color, ketchup or mustard, and you would throw it. And I told everyone to come in white shirts like that. They didn't mind getting dirty. And they did. But here's what happened is it was all over the parking lot. And then it was all over shoes, which meant it was all over carpet and flooring, not only for our church, but the businesses that we shared that parking lot with. I got a phone call the next day from our campus pastor. He was very kind, but it did not go well because we had to pay for carpet cleaning for the other companies for us. And it was all because I played a stupid game that I'm like, let's get messy and crazy. This will be fun. And so I had to learn. And that's one example, by the way. I have many from my own ministry or others where I'm like, man, I had to learn that the hard way. So,
and that could have been totally fine had you had a field and you weren't sharing the parking lot with other businesses and kids weren't bringing their shoes right back into the church.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with it. Like, it wasn't dangerous, but it was
not
just
thinking
stupid.
the whole process through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, obviously the safety thing being the biggest concern. That one was damage to property, which is also concerning. But definitely that's a little more livable than a kid lost his arm because we were playing a game that involved machetes, and who knew? But so yeah. All right, what's number 2? Which actually, are we going to number these 6 through 10, or is this another top 5, 1 through 5?
Yeah, I say we stick with the 10.
We're figuring this out on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be that was number 6, so this would be number 7.
So number 7 would be staff meeting etiquette. Okay, so we talked a little bit.
Hold on. Let me get my phone out while you're talking. Go on.
I see what you did there, Jeff.
I didn't have a laptop
example.
available, so I had to use my phone.
Okay, so we all have been in that staff meeting where there's the table and they're talking about something that doesn't directly affect you, pertain to you, or flat out interest you, okay? But there is a staff meeting etiquette I think that we all need to adhere to, which means, where's my phone? Here it is. The whole texting, emailing, checking your Instagram, doing other work to kind of make that time go by fast. If you're oh man, I could be getting emails done or whatever. It kind of goes back to last episode. We talked a little bit about what it means to be a team player. And even if it doesn't affect your ministry directly, you might have an idea that helps with what they're talking about. You might have an insight on a person that they've brought up as a potential volunteer or whatever. You might, if nothing else, you're just appearing interested, right, and you're going to gain points for that. But if you're constantly on your laptop or constantly on your phone until all of a sudden it pertains to you, I think you just send a pretty clear message that what they have to say, even though it doesn't affect, it's just flat out not interesting, right, and you don't care about the team.
Yeah. And I know in this day and age in phones, and this is going to be a total okay boomer statement. I'll take it. People a lot of times will write notes on their phone. People will write notes on their laptop.
Yeah.
And I know, or
good point,
students in the youth ministry will say, well, I'm on my Bible on my phone.
It's my mom. Right? It's my grandma.
All of a sudden, that's really important.
Yeah.
But I think as an adult, and maybe this will change, and again, okay boomer, but you would be better served taking a pad of paper and writing it down as people, if you're legitimately taking notes, writing it down, and then...
You're not taking notes.
Probably not. But if that's going to be your excuse... Right. I think you should be writing it down on paper and then transferring that to your phone or laptop later, because if you're writing something down and someone else talking, they feel like, oh, they're listening to what I'm saying and they're taking notes. You feel important.
Yeah. Someone
on their phone doing the exact same thing, you're thinking, you're not listening, this doesn't pertain to you, so you're bored.
Sure. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I've heard people declare that in a meeting of hey, just so you know, I'm putting this in my calendar. I'm not disinterested. And I think, I don't know, I think that might be permissible. I think we're probably talking to some people who are no, pad and paper. No, right. I will not, and that's okay. So maybe you just make a quick statement of oh, putting this in, right, unless it's distracting, and then it would get a little weird. But I think if you can do it quick enough, sometimes people might connect the dots.
Well, and making that eye contact, you can write something in your phone and still be nodding along with what somebody's saying and make eye contact with them. So they, okay, yeah, you're writing something in your phone. You're not maybe you are texting.
Well, maybe you just have to over participate after that to confirm I am
repeat some of the things they
said.
Excellent. Does this have anything to do with me? Then I'm not interested. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on, number 8.
Okay, number 8. We might hurt a little feelings here.
We're hurting a lot of feelings.
Not my feelings. I have no feelings. Just kidding. I do have feelings sometimes. But I think that there is a perception of youth pastors, probably just people in ministry in general, that we have giant egos, but I think it's just masking a lot of insecurity. Yeah, I don't really know what the remedy for this one is. I think just bringing it to light a little bit of knowing how we come across sometimes in our attempt to appear that we have it all together. Like, well, I know every answer and I thought of that already and this was my idea and and I think we want so badly to be taken seriously, for people to understand we're in charge, and we can sometimes come across as egotistical, non-approachable, very prideful, and that just hurts so many of our relationships and our reputation. So one thing is just relax. Know that you don't have to have all of the answers. Apologies go very far. The other day, like, I got a text message about something a junior hire had broken or whatever. And it was like, okay, how could I like can't supervise all my kids and make sure they're not breaking stuff, but oh my goodness, we're happy to replace that. Like, please take a picture of it. Send me a link to where you bought it so that I can make sure you get, just not like, well, not my fault. Like, there's like a defensive mode I think we can get in sometimes. But like playing well in the sandbox with our staff and our church, we have to be, take just that approach of humility, I guess. And having a realistic expectation or a realistic assessment of ourselves too, not making too much or too little of ourselves, I guess you could say, but just losing the ego, losing the pride. Sometimes when I work with youth pastors, I just feel like I have to be so strategic in how I communicate and say things so that I don't trip on an ego. And it's just so refreshing when you work with that person who's so like humble, who's so for you, who invites others in to participate in their leadership. I think hoarding leadership is just a huge turnoff also. And I think that usually comes from insecurity, but like, why not let somebody else do something you could do, but they need to be on stage, or they need an opportunity, or give them credit for something that maybe was more your idea than theirs, but find opportunities to platform others, push others forward. They should be able to stand on your shoulders, not you standing on theirs, to be seen and be visible. But
I don't make it your show.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a lot of youth pastors struggle with that too, because I think they maybe feel a little invisible in the church and they want bigger opportunities than they're getting. And so when they see any opportunity for them to shine, they're going to take it because they probably feel like underutilized, maybe. I don't know. Just a theory.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think that point in itself is probably worth its own show and series, because there's a lot to unpack with that. But I think that's good for today. That was number 8.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go to number 9.
Okay, so this is kind of along those same lines. So maybe it's like 8B, okay. But 9. So the shameless self-promotion has got to stop. So me and our associate pastor, she's so funny. Taylor, I love you if you're watching. But we always use this hashtag humbled because I'm like, what in the world? Like, and so now we joke about it. I'll be like, Taylor, I gave an altar call and nobody accepted Jesus. Hashtag humbled. Because it's like, dang, I really am humbled. I feel like this big. Nobody responded to, this invitation. And we could do a whole theological debate on the Holy Spirit right here. But I think you understand my example. Right. But, we like to hide behind like humbled, had 500 kids like get baptized and accept Jesus because of one of my messages. Hashtag so humbled to be a part of this ministry. And it's like, like throw up in my mouth a little bit, because you don't have to be a brainiac to like see what you're doing there. Yeah. And I always was very perplexed by, and you and I have talked about this before, like we'll get announcements or prayer requests for like, oh, pray for the 500 kids I'm taking to camp.
No, it's not 500. It's specifically like 573 kids.
Right. And it's like, would I pray any differently for 573 kids than I would for 73 kids?
Yeah, exactly. Or 5 kids. You know.
So like the number, I see what you did there.
Right.
Like you're sneaking that in order to say like,
look at me, look at us.
yeah. And so it's like, do you want the prayer or the applause?
Right.
Because I mean, it's coming across a little,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of a nice word to say.
There is no nice word, but yeah, it's true. And we've talked about humbled, and I've looked it up several times in the dictionary because I feel like the way it's being used by most people is not how I always thought that word should be used.
Yeah.
Humbled would mean we planned for 573 kids. We promoted the heck out of this event, and we got 3 kids. I am humbled by that experience.
Pray for my humbled heart.
But I feel like it, and I don't want to say that it's being used wrong, because I think what they're saying is we planned for 3 kids and we got 10,000 kids. I'm humbled because I feel like I'm not worthy of the outcome.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to give him a little credit, but I feel like...
Right. I think you know what you're doing. So let's just leave it on the
Right.
table. The other one, Shameless Self-Promotion 2, is like, there's 1,000 kids behind me because I'm speaking at this awesome thing and I'm going to take a selfie of it. You know what I mean? And I think we just look for those opportunities to make our ministry appear so fun,
Right.
so big, humbled for this opportunity to speak at blah, 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 blah. Now, there is also a line there because I know people are like, well, this is my profession and I want to showcase that, and opportunities could come your way and stuff like that. So is all self-promotion bad? No, I don't think so. I really don't.
In this day and age, it's the game that's being played.
Yeah, and if everyone else is playing it, it's almost like
Doesn't-
if you don't play
Right.
it, it's like you're invisible and you sort of have to. But I just...
make it legitimate and make it...
tasteful.
Yeah. And yeah, just, if you're going out of your way, like, all right, everybody, make sure you're getting in the vertical picture I have on my phone to make sure we're getting as many people in there as possible, then maybe you're...
Because don't you think for every person who's like, wow, look at you, there's like 100 people that are like, ew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And those are the
And
ones
shame on them too.
Yeah.
We all
for sure.
suck.
We all suck. The end.
Because yeah, if there's a huge event you're doing, we have to get as many photos as possible. If there's a big flop, let's cover up this event, make sure no one knows it ever happened.
Right.
And that's a pride thing, and that's an ego thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like you could say, never take a picture at an event or else you're prideful. Like,
Right.
no. I don't know. I think it comes down to a bit of a heart thing.
Right.
And, we're in a, like you said, social media age. We need to post stuff. We need to be out there. I think it is important. Like, and at some point, we'll probably do a whole episode on social media and how to utilize it and the relevancy to your ministry and how to like ace that. I think we have a really cool guest in mind for that. But yeah, it's just like, maybe don't like quote yourself and stuff on
That's always
social
yeah.
media.
If you are
Let's
posting
end there.
it
Hurry, move on,
and
move on.
quoting yourself. Someone can quote me on that. I'm going to quote myself on that. If you're quoting yourself and tagging yourself, quote unquote, Jeff Laswell. All right.
I can't.
Was that number 9?
Yes.
Okay,
and
this
then,
is the number 10, the last thing.
Oh, using student ministries as a stepping stone. I think that
With that in mind.
yeah.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. Like, oh, I got promoted to a different position. Yay. But I think, and this is tale as old as time.
Note to
Oh,
self,
guy.
edit out. Song selection by Kristen.
End quote. Like this, as long as I can remember being in youth ministry, this is being talked about, is that youth ministers sometimes use youth ministry as just a stepping stone. So I don't know. I could see both sides. Like, is it preparation for something else? Potentially, but I don't know where that line is between pouring your heart and soul and being planted and acting as if this is the only thing you'll ever do. You know what I mean? In terms of like, I gave it so much of myself, not like, well, I was in a waiting room labeled youth ministry for like 5 years and
youth
nothing
ministry
happened.
purgatory.
Yeah. I think that being faithful to wherever you are, no matter the size of your youth group, no matter the size of your church, no matter the staff or the resources you have around you, if your heart is truly for ministry, it doesn't matter how many people came. It doesn't matter who came. It doesn't matter what you had, because the gospel's the same, ministry is the same, people are the same, and people all want the same thing. So the hope maybe is that as your leadership grows, also your position in your ministry will grow. But who are we to say? I think that's like they always say, like, we do the work, God is going to make it grow. So be patient with God's pace for you, God's pace for your ministry, and God's pace for the church that you're at. Because I think the worst thing we can do is think, because it's not big, because it's not a big stage, because it's not a big platform, it's less legitimate. And I think that's like the hardest thing on our ego. Speaking of that, is just when we do see everyone around us that has a billion kids coming and everything looks so fun and they had like such a cool video and wow, like everything was so polished and produced, and you know, here I am with my like 8 kids at a community center where we're like, you know, just doing our thing. It's like, that's no less valuable.
Right.
But it takes a hit on us. And so I think a lot of times we're waiting for like, what's next? Like, all right, God, like I'm putting in my time with these like 8 kids.
Right.
Like, when do I, but like, again, like being a parent, my heart has changed a lot for that. It's like, if I was sending my kid to a youth group with a youth pastor that saw them as like,
clocking in, clocking out.
yeah, I'd be like, so my kid's not valuable because they're only one of 8.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, but if they were one of 200, you'd feel differently about them. No, you'd feel differently about yourself. So I don't know, just kind of something to chew on. You may disagree, you may want to push back on that, and that's okay. Like, just something to think about for where you're at, you know, meant to be more of an encouragement than a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And a guide, not like a stop sign, but more like a detour if you're going these ways and getting you back on track.
Right. And I would never say, doesn't mean like, don't look for opportunities. Stay there forever and ever and ever and ever.
Well, the hope would be,
like,
if God led you into the ministry, God would then be leading you out of the ministry. And that you would know when that time came, it wouldn't just be an agenda where it's like, well, I'm going to take this job.
Right. Like, don't jump the gun on what he may still be wanting to do with where you're at. There's so many frustrating moments I look back on in my ministry where it was so tempting to jump ship, mostly because it got difficult and I didn't feel like it was growing at the pace that I had hoped. And for all my hard work, I wasn't seeing the results that I had wanted. And now on the other side, I just remember like, wow, I'm so glad I was faithful. I'm so glad I kept plugging away. I didn't retract from that ministry. I still continued to pour everything into it. And I would get these seasons where I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Like, cause even getting backlash from other people in ministry, like just little snide remarks or little jabs, I think that were meant to be funny. And hey, make fun of me all day long. This guy. But when there's some truth mixed in and it's a place that's already hurting,
right,
it's like, ugh. And I had those seasons where I'm like, way to kick me while I'm down. But I just laser focused on, this is what I'm doing and here's who I'm doing it for. Audience of one, audience of one, audience of one. And I was able to get through that time and just had to quiet down those voices around me. And maybe those voices around you are coming from social media. Well, then get off of it for a bit. Or comparing yourself to somebody else in your organization that's promoting faster than you are. You know, like, we all are in the spot we're in for the time we're in for a reason. So just hang in there, and God's timing is
perfect.
Yeah.
What a great way to end. Well,
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and put some comments below and say what other things that youth pastors do that make them suck. No, if you agree with some of the comments, if you disagree, go ahead and comment, and it might be just interesting to see what other people have to say about that. If you are listening on a podcast, also make sure you subscribe. And we hope you guys will join us for the next episode coming next week. Take care.
Thanks for checking out this episode. We hope that it provided a ton of insight for you to create health in yourself, your ministry, and your church.
And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Ministry Coach podcast wherever you're watching or listening. And it would mean so much to us if you would rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts.
And we'd also encourage you to share it with a friend so that it can go to help more people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.